Hello there. Let's see, people beginning to back in. Welcome back from break. I hope everybody had a chance to get up and walk around. I know I appreciated that. Okay. So Simon, we'll give people a couple minutes to get back from break.
No problem.
And then we'll just get going here.
It's 7:45 p.m. here in the UK, so we're it's early afternoon where you are, isn't it? Late afternoon.
Yes, everybody's just getting into. So I hope everybody had a few snacks which we were able to watch. And I don't know if you saw it in the box. You know, Vin Diesel, which is great. And then welcome back, everybody. I'm just going to turn your mic off for a second and do a test one. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to turn, Simon, I'm going to turn your mic on as soon as I finish my comments and then turn my mic off. There's just a little bit of feedback, I think, between the two. We're getting a good quorum. Everybody's coming back. I see a ton of people here. I see Jan, I see Mike, Mark, Donna, Michael, Ish, Nelson. We got a good crew back here. Naeem, good to see you back here from break. Want to hear how it's going for you. So great. So I think we're going to get going. I think we're beginning to get a quorum of different people. We're all taking a break, but we also need to remember that we are all international here. We've got the continent of South America represented, North America, and coming direct from the EU and is, well, actually from Britain. I should correct myself there, is Simon. So Simon, welcome. You've got a really great session. It grew out of a conversation about data and how to really use data to grow your business. So Simon's put together a great presentation on that. So I'm going to turn your mic on, my microphone off, and I will let you run with it. So take it away, Simon.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's actually 7:45 in the evening here in the UK. So I'm coming from you near a place called Brighton, which is near the seaside. It's been 26 degrees here, but really glad that you could join me. And I hope you find the presentation interesting. So really, I wanted to speak to you today on how modern day acquirers can help you grow profitably, even in these uncertain times. And it's even more important to understand the transactions that you're taking, the trends, and make sure that you stop the churn. As you can all agree, acquisition of customers and keeping of customers is equally important. So first of all, I just wanted to go through what does the modern payments company offer today. And I think the fact that there's so many people from all over the world joining this call, a lot from large companies who have a global presence, it's becoming more and more important for an acquirer to have worldwide coverage. And I just really wanted to give you an example of what PaySafe offers, not really to give you a sales pitch, but really to give you an example of what we see new acquirers doing. And I would definitely include ACI Worldwide, as the name suggests, in that group as well. So first of all, we're acquirers, so what we would call typical acquiring. So we're principal members of Visa and MasterCard Europe. We're also the 5th largest non-banked acquirer in the US, and we offer acquiring in the EU, North America and Australia, amongst other regions as well. And that's all accessed through one gateway. As well as that, though, we also offer we're a Visa and MasterCard card issuer, and we supply prepaid cards for large organizations all over the world. For example, Coinbase or large banks, challenger banks like Revolut. We also, as well, have the 2nd and 3rd largest digital wallet after PayPal and outside of China, with PayPal being the biggest. But our Skrill and Nutella digital wallets are the 2nd and 3rd largest, with millions of consumers all over the world. And in fact, the main reason why they're a benefit to subscription companies like yourself is they have over 100 alternative payment methods attached to them. So if you need Boku in Brazil or Poly in Australia, or even Yandex in Russia to get your subscribers in those regions, then we'll have it. As would, I emphasize again, most of the new breed of acquirers. We also have something that's a little bit quirky. We have a very large e-cash business, which it basically enables people to pay cash in over 300,000 locations worldwide, places like post offices and 7-Elevens. And you either go in there and physically hand over cash and get an e-money voucher, which you can use online, or the actual merchant, the business, can send a barcode to the customer, who can then go into these places, hand it over to the guy and pay over the counter. Now that actually took about £3 billion last year, the PaySafe card part of it, and the PaySafe cash again many billions too. And the companies that use that, Amazon, Sony PlayStation, and actually a very large music streaming company uses it to great effect. And I've got something to show you on that later on. We also have a pay later service, which enables you to pay at time of checkout and spread the cost over 24 months. And we hold 48 money remittance licenses covering over 40 remittance corridors, which is seen as offer taxis in Mumbai, payment options. And the only reason I'm sort of mentioning this is to give you an example of the breadth and scale of the new technology-driven payments companies that are out there. And I think there's a definite sway away from the sort of bank-backed commodity-type processes of old. So it's quite important. So I hope that wasn't too much of a PaySafe pitch. It really wasn't meant to be. It was just to show you that there are a lot of acquirers out there that can give you worldwide coverage, and that's one of the first things that I would recommend. So if we go on to the actual body of the presentation, what I really wanted to talk about is data, and really how data analysis and business intelligence at the first point from the acquirer can be really helpful. By getting this, it then enables you to bring in other products like Vindicia, like account updata, but this is really the first part, understanding the data and understanding what's happening with your transactions. And getting that data really helps you in a number of ways. So obviously, improving in-house practices to reduce declines and maximize conversions, that's really what it's all about. To monitor and maintain rates, to have reports that enable you to see at a glance exactly, excuse me, my dog just left, I do apologize. Right, so customized reports enable you to analyze the 150 different reason codes that come back from a card issuer as to why a card can be declined. And obviously not look at all those 150 reasons, but have it presented to you in a way that enables you to make clear business decisions very, very easily. And then also to create quarter reports so you can benchmark, and that's normally done by a relationship manager coming to see you and really just doing a sanity check that everything's working okay. Peer-to-peer benchmarking, extremely important, particularly not only on sort of geography to geography, but also on MCC codes, and also not only what your transactions are doing, but what are your peers' transactions in the same industry doing? What are they expecting? And therefore being able to benchmark against those. And the final piece really is to analyze the declines you're getting from the issuers. So enabling you to really look at granular details as to what banks are declining, if any, your transactions, so that the acquirer can go and advocate on your behalf. So I just wanted to go through that in a little bit more detail. So I've got a few examples, but this first one, there's normally three things that we look at. So you're looking at the authorization and analysis. Here you might look at method of payment, you're looking at the decline codes, you're looking at the total counts, and really getting that data to benchmark. On top of that, you'll get also, as I've mentioned, the bank issuers, so you can see if there's anything bad going on there. And then finally, what are you actually doing when you present that transaction? You know, have you got address verification? Have you got fraud and security measures that are actually, you know, stopping the transaction going through? And if I just show you, draw your eye to the graph here, so you can see all the way down, this is a client's merchant numbers. As you can see, it's traffic light. So here, if you go the fourth down, so they've had 20 in Q1, they saw 38% conversion rate. Obviously that was tweaked, it went up slightly, and then it's gone down again in Q4. So very quickly at a glance, you can see that where you are in that transaction. And also you can see that all the others are doing very well. Obviously, you've got a red one there, which is for the USD to, I think that's their Venezuelan currency. So maybe that's the reason there. But having that in that easy, readable format can be invaluable. To go on to another sort of three examples, really to show you benchmarking. So here we have the standard, what everybody should be getting, which is showing the method of payment, Visa debit, Visa credit, the transaction count, so 45 million debits here, the rate, 88%.4, and so on and so forth. And this really should be the least analysis that you're doing. And you should be checking this on a quarterly or monthly basis, or even daily basis, to ensure that you're maximizing those authorization rates. Same with MCC code comparisons. Often different acquirers will put different verticals and different sectors in numerous MCC codes, and it can have a real effect on the actual authorization rate. So we see here, if you look second from the bottom, we have the 5945 MCC code running at a 74% rate, whereas we have the 4814 MCC code running at 93. And all this is doing really is giving you the opportunity to go back to your acquirer, question why that's happening, and then seeing if you can do something with that MCC, either changing it or actioning it. It also helps you to understand from a marketing perspective why perhaps you're not getting the same results that you are in other areas. And finally, very, very importantly on this slide is the regional differences. So clearly, you know, if you're a US-based company and you're cross-border selling into other countries, you wouldn't expect extremely high authorization rates for that. So, you know, here we've got the CASA region, so the Central and South Asian region, you've got down at 58.8%. But it's really important that you have that data, not only so you can benchmark it against your transactions, but also what's happening for other companies in your MCC code in that area. And having that granular detail can be really important. It's worth pointing out that this really is trending data. So it's there to ensure that you have a full sort of bird's eye view, an easily digestible view of what's going on with your transactions. And it also means that you can understand the nuances of particular regions. So perhaps in some instances, it may be worthwhile you having domestic acquiring and setting up some sort of business in the EU if you're a US client to increase those authorization rates. And then finally, something that we can, as an acquirer, can really help you with, and that's what are the banks doing? And we find this time and time again. For unknown reasons, a bank will suddenly decline recurring transactions, in particular for subscription methods, just because you're not fitting in with what they're looking for. You're being caught up in some sort of fraudulent checks and balances that they do. But without having that data, you can't go back and actually understand that basically it's happening. And in this instance, we see the Bancorp at the bottom of this list, coming in at a 48% authorization rate, whereas all the other banks are coming in at extremely higher. And we've used this to a great degree, particularly in cross-border. As an example, we can say to an EU merchant who's targeting US clients, Bank of America bins are X amount of a percentage, whereas Chase could be another one. And really, without having that data, you can't analyze it. And what we would do here, we would go back to that bank, we would have a relationship, we would speak to them and try and overcome it. It doesn't always happen, but at least you've got the data to understand that it can. So I hope that's sort of given you an idea of the data that you should be being able to get from an acquirer. And once you've got that, you can then action the normal secondary points of protection, which is obviously having account updater or having account updaters like Vindicia, who can take failed transactions and make them into a positive. And obviously that reduces churn and increases revenues. I don't want to steal Vindicia's thunder, but we've worked very closely with them, and we've seen some of our clients get significant increases in those failed transactions. I'm talking, 18 to 25%, which revenue on the table is extremely impressive. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on some research that we found really talks about the fact that not your normal customer, outside of your normal customer, there's a huge sway of people who don't fit into that normal financial model and really need different options and different payment options in order to be enticed. And just to give you some example of the research we've got, 32 million of households in the US are underbanked or unbanked. So don't have the 3.5 credit cards or debit cards in their wallet that the general population may have. 72% of Americans are concerned about online security and will actually be reluctant to give a credit card for that reason. There's you could say that that's a demographic issue, but I mean, I would suggest that isn't true. I think there's a lot of people who are concerned about that. So how do you overcome it? 20% of US households use alternative financial services. And I think this is all going to be compounded with the current crisis, which we all hope will get in and out of quickly. And 31% of all transactions in the US are cash. Or you can, cast dispersions as to why that's the reason for that, but it's a phenomenally high number. And this was one that really resonated with me. In a survey done post-COVID, 25% of consumers surveyed said they made their first ever online transaction. So there's two arguments there to say that the current situation has forced people to go online and they'll actually adopt it now, so the adoption will go up. But it also goes out to show that there were a lot of people who aren't, in this sort of forward thinking, as we would expect. Everybody would have done a transaction. They haven't. And that's really where integrations and to alternative payment methods kick in. And products like our eCash products become really, really important, because without giving the consumer the access to these alternative payment methods, you don't get access to that group of people. Whether that group of people may be a small percentage compared to your average buck, it's still being alienated unless you adopt these sort of practices. I just wanted to leave you with a case study here. So we work with one of the world's leading music streaming services. It's one that usually gets adopted by teenagers. So it's not Apple Music, it's one of the others, but it's an extremely worldwide organization. And they wanted to add new customers and realized that there were a lot of people who didn't have access to normal means of payment or their normal payment methods, which was credit and debit cards. So what they did was they implemented our eCash solution, a PaySafe card, a few years ago. They were very strategic in who they rolled it out to. So just to give you a random example, we know in Romania, in Europe, the average credit cards is about 0.7 per person. Whereas in the UK here, we're running at about 3.5, 4 credit cards per person. So they were very strategic in where they rolled it out. But they sent out options for 1 to 3 month subscriptions via PaySafe cards. So people would either take the barcode into the 300,000 stores and pay over the counter, or they'd purchase a PaySafe card and be able to pay for this subscription via that method. And then shortly before the prepaid subscription expired, they'd send out a new email and say, now would you like to start the subscription proper? And the results were quite outstanding. In certain countries, the business saw 104% volume growth in year 2 and 37% in year 3. But the interesting stat here is 20 to 30% of those new users who used the PaySafe card to subscribe were new to the platform. So that suggests that they're accessing clients that they wouldn't normally without the use of this payment method. They also, at the end of that, to stop churn, once it had gone through all of the various methods, so we'd done account updata, would send it to Vindicia. The only option really was to call the customer or cancel the customer. They then sent another text out with the PaySafe link on to say, hey, you're going to lose your service. Would you like to go and pay via this method to just start the month again? So I guess the moral of the story is really to give your customers as much options as possible. And that stat there at the bottom, 35% of those users did switch to a recurring payment method such as credit cards. So it's all about getting the clients in. Once you've got the clients in, keeping them and maximizing that churn rate. And I think that is my last slide. So I hope that didn't bore you too much with the data, but I'd be happy to take questions in the breakout area. And thank you very much, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much, Simon. That is really fantastic. I'm just muted you just because of the feedback. So June is putting everybody into breakout rooms. Simon, you are going to go into breakout room number 1. So if you want to click on the app link and choose breakout and then choose breakout room number 1, you can do that, or just break out and join us an attendee, and June will put you in breakout room number 1. So we're getting everybody into the breakout rooms. And I have to say, Simon, that 25% statistic of first time ever online transactions is eye-opening. I think when we come out of this pandemic, things are going to be changed permanently, and part of that is not only consumer habits related to being paranoid about getting ill. I think there's going to be people who are forever working and doing business online that were avoiding it like the plague, no pun intended, before. So fascinating, fascinating info. So I can see everybody's now just beginning to get into the breakout sessions. So June's working on that. And I'll just text her. Okay. Breakouts ready. So we're going to come back in 10 minutes, just so everybody knows. Jesus is going to be talking next. So it's 3:10 now. The room is timed for 10 minutes. So we'll get going on that. So there you go. Alrighty.
Hello.
Hey, how are ya?
Good. How about you guys?
Good stuff.
This is some data, really interesting data. How's it going, Jonathan?
Hey, broke up.
We get 9 people here, so it's kind of like the Brady Bunch for anybody who watched that. So it's like I'm looking up here. Hi, Donna. Hey, Steve.
I always wanted to do that.
So Simon is making his way over here. So my shock stat was that 25% of online transactions were, just new. What surprised you guys about the presentation we just heard?
I made that same note, Kathy, and I was curious to ask Simon whether or not they had any demographic breakdown of that, because I assumed, I was thinking maybe that was a, certain population to the point of never having engaged online before.
That is actually very interesting. I wonder if it's a certain, I wonder if it's a certain demographic that's really driving that statistic. But that's pretty amazing. Jonathan, any interesting stats that surprised you?
Well, being in the industry, and not too much. I've seen it before, but I actually, to introduce myself, I'm based in Montreal, so I work on our North American division. Definitely collaborate with Simon a lot, and nothing particularly surprised me. I was going to ask you guys anything really stick out to you guys, and anything that you guys found interesting, or any questions you might have had about your own businesses, or anything anything at all.
I mean, I will notice it at Subscription Insider. I mean, we're B2B and we have e-commerce and recurring. And I've definitely noticed an increased push to use PayPal, even in the niche business that we are from our customers. So, from my little corner of the world, we're right on trend, which is very interesting.
I thought the 72% of the consumers, the end users, are concerned about security. And that would be, well, of course, right, with all the announcements that come out every month. So it actually gave me a light bulb moment that maybe that should be something that we're recommending. It is all behind the scenes, but have them feel more confident by, publishing some kind of text that says, just for your information, this is how your payment goes through in a very secure manner, something like that. That's a really high number,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's a good point, Donna. That's a good point. So, Steve, what say you?
I was just thinking about Donna's comment, and I wonder if some sort of two-factor authentication could overcome that consumer security fear. And then I was also thinking of the part of the presentation where he talked about enabling preloaded cards, or loading cards with cash and enabling that as a payment mechanism. How's that going to change going forward? Is that going to have to be switched to something virtual as well?
Yeah, I think people are more comfortable with two-factor authentication. I'm curious what the percentage is for banks. So now when I just do, normal consumer, I have two-factor authentication with Bank of America on my consumer accounts, also on the business accounts. But it's just a natural part that I've done with all of my accounts. Does anybody know how many consumers are really adopting that? Just curious.
I think it's very, sorry. I think in North America, it's pretty low at this point, actually. I know it's extremely popular in the UK and in Europe, but from my experience working with US and Canadian merchants, they seem to be a lot more interested, and it's especially since the pandemic and the current crisis, people are really trying to step up their security measures. But in general, a lot more popular in Europe, but growing for sure in North America.
Interesting. Yeah, all you got to do is take a look at some of those black market sales of consumer cards and consumer names and consumer data, and you're going to convert to two-factor authentication pretty darn quick. So, yep. So Melanie, I'm curious what you thought. I mean, I thought some of it really tied into your presentation with the debit cards and the preloaded cards.
Yeah. And it's all, regionally is different, demographics are different. What we see is certain verticals really skew toward different kinds of payment methods, whereas other verticals are more traditional. I mean, obviously B2B, you might see some commercial cards, more Amex, even higher ticket price, you see credit. Others, you see a lot of prepaid. And aside from product, it also widely varies by promotion. So if you're doing affiliate marketing or advertising on Instagram, you'll get a totally different kind of payment method and payer, and therefore lifetime value, than you will on other channels of acquisition. So region, offer, price, everything plays into how people pay and how successful that payment is over time.
Yeah, really interesting. So Jonathan, I think Simon ended up joining a different room. So I know that you guys had some questions you wanted to ask us. Yeah. What were they? You want to lead the conversation? You're on. You've got the mic now.
I actually do not have the question, to be honest with you. Let me go see what's up with Simon quick.
Okay, no, he joined like a different room. I'm not really sure what happened to him. It's hysterical. I'm like, every time I'm looking down, I'm texting him too. I'm like, what room is Simon in? It's like,
don't panic.
Really? I don't know. It's hysterical. Anyway, but I think we have a good conversation going, and if you can pull some stuff, I probably could pull some of your questions up in my email because I think I saw some of it, but it was really just based on the data that you had, is my understanding, Jonathan. So any other comments or surprises that you saw?
Yeah, I think one of the other summary numbers was 31% of all transactions are cash. Still seemed like a high number, and I think, Kathy, you mentioned it in an earlier conversation. It'll be interesting again over time to see how that plays out, given everyone's, at least here in the U.S., not wanting to touch anything that can be a carrier.
Yeah, I mean, you put your mask on, you got the gloves. Everybody's being trained to be beyond paranoid. I mean, I don't know if you guys are as paranoid up in Canada or else, in the EU, but I mean, honestly, we are very, very cautious. But I know I'm, and the team is based in a hot spot in the greater Boston area. So, we personally know people who are sick, very sick, or have passed away. So there's, we have personal, connection with it to drive that paranoia, where perhaps others don't. So interesting. Now we have another minute. I don't know if people can see the timer. Can you guys see the timer?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All righty. One thing I've noticed, this tool is really good for a lot of different things, but that switch from the end of the discussion is a little bit harsh. So, and then, but all good. Any other comments or ideas or suggestions or anything? Donna, Melanie?
Well, I think Melanie's stat of the, was it 900% increase with alcohol and crafts? I
Yeah,
think that was
and I
the
got
only
that from
thing.
ACI.
That was not a surprise. Yeah.
Melanie, I
So-
loved your opening slide, the question. That was classic. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
That was awesome. All right, I think we're about to be slammed out of here. So I will see you on Jesus' session. So well, thank you guys all, and we will talk in the next session. All righty.
Bye, guys.